All right, my name's Mark Davis. I'm the communications manager here at the BAA, so I'm the one bombarding you with emails and all kinds of hopefully important and valuable information. We'll be sending a lot more to you over the next couple of weeks, but tonight we're hoping to give you enough information to be able to walk away and say to yourself, I'm ready. I know what to expect, and let's just, all the time right now is just to rest, relax, and get ready for the race. But first up, before we start tonight's program, I would like to introduce somebody who's obviously very important to the organization and helps, for lack of better words, direct us as to what we need to do. Our executive director with the Boston Athletic Association, Tom Grill.
Thank you, Mark. Mark at the BAA is our resident Olympian, steeplechaser at the Atlanta Olympic Games. So among us, he's fast. We're not. He knows what he's doing. Well, I have 10,000 well-chosen words for you here. I'm going to hold until about 9:30 for anyone who chooses to stay for that. And instead, all I really want to do is talk to you for just a minute about the person whom you are here to hear, which is my friend Mr. Rodgers over here. Bill, as you all know, probably you've heard it more or less one way or another, 4 times the Boston Marathon winner, 4 times the New York City Marathon winner, winner of a lot of stuff, set records. A lot of us watched one night in the gathering twilight as he broke the world record for the 1-hour run over at BU. He's done some pretty good stuff running. But quite apart from all that, there's something in what Bill has done that is of interest to those of us who are more mortal, ordinary, normal, in some of our cases, subnormal. What Bill did was not just go out there and kill people and win races. It didn't happen overnight. The first time he really showed up on the world stage, I think, was at a World Cross Country Championship, someplace, what, Morocco or something?
Morocco.
Yeah, someplace off my grid. And worked up to that, and up from there, and then to the marathon, and through it, and through all that he became. But in doing that, displayed a respect for the sport, for the demands, for what it puts on your body, for how much it hurts, and modulated it over a period of time so that he could keep going the way no one else could. Now, yeah, okay. So I wouldn't try to learn from Bill anything about doing 120-mile weeks, or getting out there and doing speed work on the track at about a 4:39 pace or something like that. Probably not a great idea. But the respect for the sport and what it does to you and what it takes to just keep getting better, there's a lot of lesson there. And you'll hear it, I think, in what he says and in response to questions. But one other thing you might want to ask him about is, as I watch that video and videos like that, usually I'm sitting with people who are kind of like me, who weren't very good at this. I was barely able to get into the Boston Marathon, barely able to qualify by like an eyelash. And I will say to them as we watch that kind of footage, boy, those people, they're just not like us. You know, there's something different going on there. And that's true for most of us, but it's not true for Bill. It's not true for a handful of people who take excellence to a level that most people will never see, never experience, never understand. As we were sitting watching there just 2 minutes ago, the runners coming by, I said, well, look at the pack break up. Look at the pack break up. Well, yeah, I can do that. Pack breaks up, somebody goes ahead, somebody wins. You know what? Most of the time, it's the same few people who break those packs up, and it's not an accident that it happens. Somebody makes it happen. Somebody with a competitive instinct so powerful that it overcomes other people who have all the same ability. So there's something else going on here. So from Bill, you find out something about just staying with it, knowing yourself and doing what you can do, and building it over a period of time. Don't get crazy. At the same time, you get to, and I hope you'll ask some questions about this, you get to learn from one of very, very few people who know what it means to break that pack. To look left, look right, and say, you know what? Oh yeah, kill them, and do it. Nice guy, wonderful fella, sweetest person you'd ever want to meet, but killer instinct, don't get in the way. A lot of dead bodies in the road. With that, a trained killer, Bill Rodgers. Bill, take it away.
sport. It's a lifetime sport. But these are photos from yesteryear, I guess. But I had so much fun running the Boston Marathon over the years, and I'm just going to talk a little while. My words of wisdom, not many words of wisdom really. This sport, it's a sport really where we know so much more today. There's so much information, partly because of the BAA and athletes and coaches and medical people that have learned so much. We know so much more about the science of exercise, training, all that sort of thing. And we can all benefit. And so here you are, you know, you're getting ready to run Boston, which is, you know, that was my first marathon. I was a marathon DNFer, did not finish my first marathon. And the marathon is really kind of it is a different sort of event. I don't know if it's really the same as track races. Mark was a great track racer. I was someone who didn't really have any speed, fast twitch muscle fibers. You know, I was more a longer distance runner, and so, but I never thought of becoming a marathoner. Though my college roommate won the Boston Marathon. And I had no idea what that really meant, except I saw him running a lot. And he was always trying to convince me to join him on his long runs, you know. And he got me to do my first 15-miler. My legs were really sore. I had to walk, and then and then beyond. But he was always trying to get me to run more. I didn't really understand it. I think none of us really did years ago. That it's really just about training your heart, avoiding injuries. It's a simple sport. Finding the shoes that you really love, you know, some gear that you like. Your training partners. Your training partners are everything, I always say, and you know, so that's a key. But I think you're going to have a great day. It's a phenomenal day of celebration. That's what to me the Boston Marathon is. It wasn't my first one. I actually quit running for 3 months after my first one. I kind of hated road racing and marathoning. I didn't run in the winters and I didn't run in the summers. It took me a while to get used to the weather. Is there anyone else here like that? Also, any ex-smokers in the room? I love that. When I first came to Boston, I was not a runner. I quit running for 3 years, 2-3 years after college. I was a smoker. Our bodies, you know, we can recover from anything, just about, you know. And I think our sport is the sport of possibilities. That's what the marathon stands for. So you're all examples of that, you know. And so I think when you're running the course, there's people who are going to be watching you, you know, the young kids, your families, your friends, and they're going to see you out there, and you're gonna knock them out, you know, because it's just such a phenomenally interesting challenge. I hope you have fun. If you have fun in the sport, you know, sometimes it's not fun. The long runs are tough. They are. In fact, I haven't run as far as most of you have run this year. I don't think I could qualify for the Boston Marathon now, you know. I mean, my last marathon was Boston in 2009. I ran 4:06. I think qualifying time for my age is about 4 flat. So I would make it, you know, but I don't know, maybe if I gear up, I could try it again, you know. I know I'm going to run it again, because the dangerous thing about the Boston Marathon, when it gets in your blood, it's there forever. And the Babe Ruth of American marathoning is Johnny Kelly from Arlington, Mass. He's our Babe Ruth, and ran Boston 61 times, a number which I can't comprehend. But there are people trying to break that record today, and our sport is about this kind of a quest. You know, we all have our quests in life in different ways and everything, but running can be one as well. And what I love about it is it's a global sport. You can see the Kenyans who are up there, the Ethiopians, the Russians, runners from all over the world. So I hope you'll keep exploring the sport, you know, and come back to Boston. And I'll be cheering you on race day. Everyone is on your side. Take your time. And right now the weather's backing off. I wouldn't do too much hard training, but you've got some time where you can still run well. You've got 3 weeks to go. Plenty of time. One thing I would say, if you're fighting injury now, I would take care of it. You know, I'd go to a physical therapist or massage therapist, something like that, knock the injury out, you know. Back off now a little bit. You're pretty fit. You've been running the winter, though it's been a hard winter. But the only thing that counts is getting to the starting line, because you know you can get to the finish line. I'll stop there, and later I think we're all going to try to answer your questions. The staff of the BAA, they know the logistics, and that's the important stuff, you know. But I will see you out there. I hope you have a great day in Boston. See you on the roads, okay?
All right, Boston Billy, folks. Yeah, give him a applause. It's amazing. We get spectacular athletes here at the Boston Marathon these days, and some of the best runners in the world. And to have somebody in our backyard that's won this thing 4 times, it's amazing, because it's been a long time since we've had a 4-time winner, much less somebody that's considered a good old local boy around here. So next up, we want to get into a little bit, Bill talked about 3 weeks to go. And I had asked you folks earlier about hopefully everybody got the long run out of the way. Did anybody participate in the big long run from Hopkinton on Saturday? Good amount of you, so that was good. My wife and a friend went out there on the course and ran from the firehouse to BC, and then as soon as they turned around, it was an amazing headwind. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the tailwind. We're not sure what we're going to get on Boston Marathon weekend. It's looking most likely we won't get last year's conditions, so let's cross our fingers, knock on wood. But hopefully we got good conditions there. To help get you ready for Boston Marathon Race Day, I want to introduce our assistant coach with the BAA Running Club, Terry Shea, who will go through some do's and don'ts and hopefully some sound advice to get you ready from this past weekend to April 15th. Terry Shea, folks.
Thanks, Mark. So a huge crew, it looks like, was out on the course Saturday for their probably last big long run. Was there a group out yesterday on the course? Some more hands. Okay. Earlier I mentioned to head coach Mike Peroni that I was out on the course with some athletes yesterday, and I said there were tons of people, hundreds, if I could have counted. And he's like, oh, well, Saturday was the big day, so I can't imagine how big of a day that was. I should also note, yesterday I had the pleasure of seeing Bill around the 25.5-mile mark. He was running, the athletes had just finished up their long run, and we got a hello wave from Bill, and all the runners took that as a good omen for race day. So that was exciting. So now that we are inside of the last 3 weeks, with the vast majority of us having finished up the last big long run, I'm going to talk about the key guidelines for what to do and what not to do during these last 3 weeks. We're in what we generally call the taper period. How many, another raise of hands here, how many have gone through a marathon taper previously? Okay, so a lot of taper experience. Of those that have, another raise of hands, who enjoys the taper? Like once you're actually in it. And then who does not care so much for the taper, finds it a bit annoying, poses some challenges. All right, it looks like the people that dislike the taper, outweighs the number that do, and might be counterintuitive, but it makes sense, I think, once you go through that. I think a lot of people look forward to it when they're training hard, but once they're in it, they find it can be a bit difficult, feeling a bit antsy, basically just wanting a race day to come. So the taper is the period of the gradual reduction in training volume, especially, and to a lesser extent the intensity. The goal of the taper is to bring an overall increase in energy by the time race day arrives. And I will point out the key there is by the time race day arrives. A lot of times people enter the taper, know they're doing less than they had been in training, and expect instant results in terms of feeling better. But it can take a while, and that's a good thing. You really want to be feeling your best, not 10 days out from the race, but on race day. And as I alluded to, the taper, while the goal is to get you feeling overall good, in the best possible shape come race day, the process itself can lead to some anxiousness. You've gotten used to a routine, 10, 12, 16, maybe 20 weeks if you're of training fairly hard, a certain routine that you're doing week to week, day to day. And then all of a sudden, when you take a lot of the activity that you've been giving yourself and feeling good doing, when you take that away, you're left with more time. There's a sense of, okay, what do I do now? If you're used to running a certain distance and now you're running half that, there's a feeling of, oh, is this even worth it? It's a little odd, but sometimes I get lazy during the taper. I think, oh, on the schedule it just calls for 4 miles. I'm used to running 10. What's the point? So this is something mentally you want to be aware of, that you may encounter and deal with as you try to relax through that anxiousness or antsy feeling. I'm going to keep the guidelines very general, not go into too much in the way of specifics, because the taper ultimately is a very individual thing. There is variation person to person. But in the question and answer session later, I welcome any complex or detailed questions that you might have, where we might be able to get into some of the nitty-gritty. But I'm going to give, starting at 3 weeks out, general percentages of how things are reduced. If your average training week was a certain number of miles, this first week out, you might reduce the number of miles that you run anywhere from 0%, which is no taper at all this first week, or up to, say, 20%. Some people may have gotten a late start to their training, or they're not feeling unusually tired, or maybe their mileage is never all that high compared to what they've done. You might still keep this week relatively normal. Bill said there's plenty of time still left to do some good work, and especially if you fall in that first boat, you can keep this week still fairly routine. On the other hand, if you're really tired, really worn out, you've been looking forward to this taper for a while, you probably want to go a little bit on the higher end of the reduction. And then the middle week at 2 weeks out is where you're really going to start to notice that you're reducing the training volume. You might cut back 20 to 40% off of what your average training week had been during the training block. And then finally at 7 days out, the last 7 days, you might be cutting your average week down to as much as 40 to 60%. So going from percentages to an actual hard numbers examples, it's a little easier to see. I mentioned someone who is, say, averaging about 50 miles per week as their normal training week. This first week out, if they reduce by 10%, it's just down to 45. Not much of a reduction, but noticeable, and that might just come from your long run, which maybe this last week was 20, and this week, at the end of this week, is 15. The 5 miles might just come from that. 2 weeks out, taking 30% of the 50 miles per week, you're down looking at 35 miles, so something that is significantly lower than your average of 50. And then finally, the last 7 days, not including the Boston Marathon, where you're going to get 26.2 miles, not including that, if you were a 50 mile per week runner, those last 7 days you might do 25 miles, maybe taking an extra day or two off of what you might normally do. So, a bit more of the details of the taper. Some do's and don'ts. First, I'll start with what the taper is not. First off, it's not a time to just all of a sudden get lazy and drastically reduce the training that you've been doing. It's meant to be a reduction, but still feeling like you're in a routine and getting, still getting a little bit more fitness as well as rest, but ultimately still staying in a routine, a training routine. It's not the time, given that you're going to have extra time and energy, it's not the time to introduce any new components. Oh, I don't have to do a run today because the taper schedule has me taking off today. I think I'll try weightlifting, heavy weights. You know, I haven't done that in 10 years since college. It might be a good time to start that. Not a good time to start that. And you'll probably hear a lot of us over the course of the tonight drill into you not introducing new things during this final phase, be it training, nutrition, apparel, footwear, etc. It's not a time to use the extra energy that you have to run faster and faster on the miles that you do. I fell into this early on in marathon. I was reducing things, and it's like, oh, I don't have much, only 6 miles today, not 10. I feel good, so I'm just going to run this harder. I'm going to run it all at my goal marathon pace, even though it's not a workout day. I didn't have the best marathon, and that time around I learned the taper is still to predominantly rest up. And then another especially Boston Marathon course-specific note is not to do any really hard downhill running during these last 3 weeks. Hopefully you've been training well on the course, or at least some hills, all throughout leading up until now. It's time to sort of cut that out to reduce the stress, which does take a few weeks to recover from. Save that downhill running for the course, but not going out too hard. So those are the don'ts. Here are some of the things to do during the marathon taper phase. Still maintain all elements of your training. It's just now that everything's sort of now at reduced volume. So you still have a long run, but now what might have been long as being 20 miles is now cut into 2/3 or maybe a half by the time you're at that 7 to 14 day out range. Might not be a long run compared to what you've been doing Saturdays or Sundays throughout, but it's still your longest run of the week, so it qualifies as a long run. Likewise with any workouts, if your training plan has had you doing any track workouts, fartlek, hill workouts, etc. Still keep up your workouts, but they should be overall less taxing, maybe the same intensity, but just less volume. If you do any marathon pace tempo running, you've probably already done your longest stretch at marathon pace, but you can still do shorter stretches so that you're still staying in that rhythm. Also, you do have some extra time, and as you're getting into race day, during this taper phase, practice not only physical training, but also mentally getting ready for race day. So you really want to start to hone in on what you should be doing that last week in terms of what you might be eating, nutrition, especially the day before, the morning of, and what you might be doing during the race itself. Examples, you're going to see Gatorade on the course, you're going to see water on the course, there'll be a power gel station, I think around mile 17. Know if you plan to use all of those products, and if you do, practice those. There's still time left to practice those, especially in the last couple of long runs you have. Make sure that you can handle water while running, Gatorade while running, any energy gels that you might want to use. Practice those now. Likewise, another important miscellaneous item is apparel and shoes. You should have a good idea, if not already have worn, tried out, what shoe you're going to wear on race day. Make sure it works for you. Have a dress rehearsal if you haven't already done so in the shoes or what you might want to wear on race day, and have a number of options. You saw a ton of great options out there on the table. Depending on the weather, there could be a number of different appropriate uniform types things to wear on race day. And finally, weather. Last year we learned just how big of an impact weather can be. So not just what you would wear or how much fluid you would take in, but another weather consideration is goal setting. You might all have a very specific time, and if you do have that specific goal time, it's probably based on a fairly ideal good weather day. You should also have a plan B, plan C, in case weather is really hot or maybe very windy, not favorable. So sort of have some goals where you can set yourself up for a successful race under a number of different circumstances. I like to call them plan A, plan B, and plan C, all of which can be great successful races depending on the circumstances you'll see on race day. Going into a bit more of some of the specifics I touched on, because a lot of people have questions on what to eat that final week or what to do on race day when it comes to food and fluids. So again, over the next few weeks, just as you're going to practice some things in training or practice some of the shoes or apparel you might be wearing, practice some things you might plan on to eat, especially the night before dinner, and then race morning breakfast. Make sure you can handle those. Have those the night before, and then the morning of, say, the long run coming up this weekend. Do you plan to go out to eat for dinner the night before at a restaurant? If you do, plan that ahead. Have an idea of what you might expect. Have the reservation made. Try not to run into a situation where you think you can just walk in to a restaurant, especially something around here, and get a table, only to find that 100 or so other people had the same idea, and now you have to wait an hour and a half on your feet. The next day is the race. I'd even checked up menu online if you've not eaten there before. Pick out a dish, maybe visit it beforehand. Make sure that that dish that you plan to eat works for you. There's been a number of times, even very experienced runners have tried something new the night before, especially eating out where they don't know exactly what's going into to an entree, only to find out the next day it's not working for them so well. Question of carbo-loading, carbohydrate loading. Yes, this is recommended. Carbohydrate loading has the effect of boosting your glycogen stores leading up to the start of the race. Glycogen is the energy source that, by and large, is going to get you through the marathon and hopefully not hitting the wall at the end. Generally, it begins about 3 days out. So for the Boston Marathon, that would be Friday morning, and goes all the way into Monday morning leading up to the race. What is it? It's basically not a drastic change in diet. That's one of the misconceptions. A lot of people just picture huge pasta meals where you're just like pigging out meal after meal. It's really still eating a moderate diet. It's just that you're sort of shifting the calories that you intake higher into the carbohydrate end. Hydrate well during this. Drink water. I think it's like every gram of carbohydrates that you have, there's like 3 grams of water that get absorbed, so you actually need to be drinking while you're carbohydrate loading. And again, this isn't a time to introduce anything hugely new or to pig out on any huge meals. It's really about sort of moderate but high in carb diet the last few days. Likewise, again, plan on what you think you may be doing on race day when it comes to grabbing water cups or grabbing Gatorade. Practice these in advance. I like the routine of every other stop, taking water at one, Gatorade at the other. It's kind of a nice balance. There can be like overhydrating too much water, so I think getting some electrolytes and some salts in the form of Gatorade can help give you a nice balance. Another thing, if you do plan on energy gels, a lot of people will time taking those with an upcoming fluid station. Try to choose water there. People have found in the past that sometimes gel rich in sugar followed by Gatorade can be a shock to the stomach. So that's more advice there on how to take things in during the race, which will again help you fend off the wall, get you to the end feeling strong. I want to conclude with echoing one of Mark's points early on, and that is knowing what you need to do these last 3 weeks. Well, then once you have that, focus on relaxing. Tonight's so exciting. I am not running Boston this year. And for the most part, through this winter, especially being a new father, I was glad I was not training for Boston. Didn't have the energy, nor sometimes the motivation was quite there going out, in the winter we've had. Watching the video, I was going to ask if I could be signed up to run in Boston now. So exciting, so motivating. The point is, there's such an element of excitement, and it's only going to build and build and build these next few weeks. It's so exciting. That's great to take in, experience, channel it towards a great race of your own. But try to stay relaxed these last few weeks. Going back to the taper challenges, frustrations, it can be difficult, you can get anxious. Just try to stay nice and relaxed and carry that into when the gun goes off. You want to have that rhythm set in the early miles of the race so that you're really saving all that stored up adrenaline for the final miles as you come into Newton and then past into Boston to finish off really strong. So again, I'm jealous of all of you running Boston now that I realize I would like to do it. So I wish you all luck, and we welcome any questions later at the Q&A session.